Welcome to The Turnover. The format is simple. Take 3 multifamily media network hosts with a maintenance background and put them together. The twist is that, like maintenance in the apartment industry, they have to respond to the unknown. You see, 2 of the hosts don't know what the topic is. The fun part is there's no limit and you get to listen in. So what ideas are we turning today?
Holidays were wonderful, and I'm really intrigued by next year. What next year's going to do, and for all of us, just personally, professionally, all of that stuff. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How you get to the holidays and you're like, you gear up for the holidays, and then the minute the holidays are starting to wind down or start to get over, instantly you're like, everything is going to change next year. It's just a week from now. I'm starting to there's not much of a difference between today and full disclosure, we are recording this. Mark, you already said the day before, the Friday after Christmas. So it's the Friday before New Year's, and it's come Wednesday, January 1st, everything's going to be different. It's all going to be different. I'm going to do everything differently that I've been doing for the last 365 days. I'm going to flip a switch on January 1st, and it's over. Whatever I've been doing, not going to do it anymore.
Human nature says we can do that by flipping a switch, right?
Yeah. Of course. So easy. So, I sit here. Well, my holiday was very good. It was very quiet. It was a lot of the routine. Paul, very similar. Just me and my daughter, my wife, went to the in-laws. And I've been with my wife 20 years. So that's old habit now, right? That's there's nothing different. No offense, to them or any of my family.
In the best way.
In the best way, right? You just show up, you eat, you have a conversation. There's no false airs, and you don't have to show off or do anything like I had to do 20 years ago. And then my parents came down. And, yeah, right. When my parents came down Christmas Day for a couple of hours, just hung out, so it was just the 5 of us, and I'm going to see my brothers this weekend. I'm going to, do that. But yeah, thankfully it was very quiet this year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to January 1st because everything is going to be different.
I love that.
So, I think it's a good segue, and I love, you guys don't know me. I have weekly meetings with my maintenance guys, and I always look for a good segue. So maybe that's where we segue our first topic, right? Of whatever we're doing here, which we don't even know yet. Maybe we'll pull that curtain back to some of the things that we recorded earlier to our listening audience. But I think it's a good segue, talking about New Year's resolutions. Paul, you said, 2025 is going to be different. New Year is going to be different. So let me talk about you said it was going to be new. You said it was going to be new.
I said new. But new
listen,
we're recorded. Different.
We're recorded. New implies different. Don't make me get my dictionary. So, okay. New Coke was different. let's talk about that, right?
Without giving it a value, good, bad, or indifferent. Different. True. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
A new car is different. It is a different car. Anyway. All right. So I like segues. So one of the things that I do around this time, and I know I said, we're going to flip a switch January 1st, everything's going to be different or new, right? And I found that I have done this in every odd year for the last 8 years. I don't know why it's odd years, right? It's just I start this back to basics initiative with my team, right? And I do it as a we all talk about back to basics. Everybody likes to use back to basics. And every January, and I start it in January, and I usually peter off, much like a New Year's resolution. I peter off around May or June, right? I give it 6 months, and I send out emails, and I reinforce them through in-person meetings, and what they are is I pick a policy or procedure from my company, and I say, okay, the Back to Basics initiative we're going to talk about this week or this month is preventive maintenance. And here's a refresher on the preventative maintenance policy. Here's a refresher on, now I don't want to talk about preventative maintenance. I'm just using this as the example, right? Here's our policy and procedure. Here's what me and the regionals are going to do. We're going to see if your PMs are set up properly in your operating system, in your property management system. And we're just going to reinforce it. We're going to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And what I have found is it's a really good refresher for team members that have been here for a long time that have gotten away from those basic items, right? But what I also found is that it gives me an opportunity to catch people that may have been hired in the last year or the last 6 months where to revisit something that was part of their onboarding. So I'm starting something different this year because I no longer, after 8 years, I no longer like Back to Basics. I don't like the sound of it. It's a personal thing, right? It's, for me, implication of Back to Basics means that they're not doing the basics and I need them to get back to doing the basics, which we know is not true, right? But there is I'm very big on word usage. I'm, different versus new. I'm very big on words matter. The word choices that we use matter. So I'm looking at, and I want your thoughts on refocusing on the basics, right? I'm not going back to basics. I just want them to refocus because I think that we get away from the basics when we go to do other things, when other things take a larger priority. Using the PMs as an example, we're turning units. We were talking about move-ins a little early, between the three of us a little earlier. We get away from, the move-ins. We forget some of the really simple, basic things that should be focused on during a move-in, especially from a maintenance perspective, and I know from a leasing perspective as well. So I don't need them to get back to it because I think that they're doing it, but I need them to focus on it. So I wanted to open it up to you guys as a topic of, one, am I insane? Two, what are your thoughts on back to basics versus refocusing on basics? And do you guys, I know it's a lot of questions, but I wanted to throw some things out there for food for thought, is what is something that you guys do at your organizations or that you've done in the past to get team members to either go back to basics or refocus on the basics as we go into this new year? I know it's a weird topic.
Yeah. No, I like it. And I do like this of just throwing it out there. And like you'll be getting raw data, right? I mean, there's no time to think about this. You're just gonna fly off here as it comes to, I love this. This is great.
Yeah. Well, I've done the back to basics before, right? So I have it's canned. Yeah. It's ready to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and focus on the basics, refocus on the basics myself. I'm going to take those things that I have canned, that I have sent out for the last 8 years, and I'm going to revisit them, which I haven't done. And I am going to rewrite them, and I am going to make them a little bit easier. And I am going to say, okay, this is a list of 10 things on this, and I'm going to refocus on what are the 3 most important things. So give you a little idea of what I'm going to do and what my goal is, for the next, 5 or 6 months. And I don't like to use the word resolution. This is a legit goal. This is something that I am going to do. But I wanted to get some opinions from you and maybe for our listeners on how do you get back to basics or how do you refocus on the basics?
I look at it as kind of from a frame of view, revising the fundamentals, meaning these are things. I had a leader one time tell me that, if you watch the big sports, the big team sports, what do? Baseball. They practice throwing, catching, sliding, and hitting. That's the game. Football, tackling and getting the ball across the goal line. Yes, you got plays, you've got ways of making that happen. Golf. I mean, even though it's not a team sport, golf, you continually focus on the swing. The thing that you and I do when we're in kindergarten. These people that get paid millions of dollars a year practice on those fundamental skills. I mean, my question would be to take that, and what do you think is the number one most important fundamental that our on-site maintenance teams need to revisit, need to reprioritize? And my answer is using a multimeter. That would be mine, just because it's amazing to me visiting properties. These guys will be, oh, I know what that is. I did that last time on the other one and I replaced this part and it worked great. Well, did you test it?
Yeah.
How would I do that? It's a computer. No, there's a computer board there, but you got power? Well, I turned the breaker and the light went off. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
Paul, I like your fundamental. I like the fundamental point because I think, like I said, I have multiple topics, right? And I think we all do. It's like we have preventative maintenance, we have move-ins, we have work orders, we have even just company policies, creating incident reports, reporting things to insurance, doing property inspections. I'm literally listing off all of the things that our teams are doing on a regular basis. But I like your idea of, as part of my initiative, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation before I actually sent anything out, is that as I'm looking at what those back to basics or refocusing on the basics items are, is calling out what is the fundamental of that one thing. What's the fundamental of preventative maintenance for my team and my organization? Now, yes, we could sit here and we could probably debate and come up with a list of 10 fundamentals for each of the topics that I each talked about, right? But you got to start somewhere, right? You start with one or two. And I love your sports analogy. Mark, you're big in, you're even wearing your Eastside Swimming, fleece right now. And, for those of you that don't know, Mark is a swimming coach. So what are your thoughts on, let's go down that rabbit hole of sports. I'm not a sports guy. Sorry. I've played sports. I'm not an athlete, never been, but I love the analogy of the fundamentals because I did play baseball and I did play football. And yes, those are the things that we practice. I never got good at any of those fundamentals, but I practiced them. So Mark, what's your perspective on, even from swimming, which is a team/individual sport?
Yeah, it's a team sport to a certain point, and then it becomes an individual sport, depending on your rankings and your individual events. But as far as a coach goes for our team, we do have fundamentals. I doubt any of my competitors are listening to our podcast, so I feel fine saying the secret to our success here because I don't think any of these individuals will be listening. But Eastside, our boys team has won 10 state championships in a row. Our girls team have 7 in the last 8 years.
Nice.
They had 7 in a row. They finished runner-up this past season. We also got bumped up to 5A, so we got bumped up to much larger, faster schools. And the classifications we have 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. We got bumped to 5A, which is a lot of the larger schools, thousands and thousands of kids down in the lower part of the state. So we were swimming against new teams, but we do focus on fundamentals. When we get into our practices, it's not like, okay, y'all swim a 500 warm up. We've got a couple 200 IMs and some drill work. It's we're not sitting on the deck in our chairs, sipping our sports drinks, just barking at the kids, telling them what to do. We have purposeful dry land. So I'm a recovering endurance athlete. I hung up the shoes a long time ago and have been trying to get over that ever since. But doing that for as long as I did, I learned a ton about nutrition. I learned a ton about my body and stretching and the importance of eating food and drinking and staying hydrated. And so take all that knowledge and start to instill it into the kids. It's like, okay, you can't, there's a reason why you cramp at 3:45 every day. There's a reason. Every day you get a cramp at 3:45. It's because you get up, you don't prepare for your morning. You don't eat a breakfast. You grab a soda out of the fridge and a couple cookies on your way to school. You don't eat lunch. You eat some Bugles and a Dr. Pepper. And then you come out here and we put you through it in the pool and you expect your body to perform. And it doesn't. You have to fuel yourself, right? So that's a fundamental. You have to eat. You can't just show up and perform. If you fuel your body properly, your body will do what you ask it to do. And then you are able to perform, but then because you're fueled properly, your body can repair itself and get ready for the next day. So fuel, but we also teach the fundamentals of the four strokes: butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, freestyle. We go through drills, we go through speed work, we go through endurance work, and we focus on each one of those strokes every single day. So Monday, it's this. Tuesday, it's this. Wednesday, it's this. Thursday, it's this. Friday, it's all of it. And we do the same thing, but we're constantly, we've got kids that have been swimming for club teams that have gone off to college. We've got a swimmer that's part of the U.S. national team. She was just in Budapest swimming for our country. And we know we're not their only coach. We know. Some of these kids have been swimming through these programs and for longer than I've known them or I have coached them through their high school team. So there's a lot of coaches instilling these things into them. But even if they go to these other club programs, and even if these swimmers are collegiate level swimmers, national level swimmers, when they come to our practice, they still get the basics. They get the fundamental breaststroke, stroke technique. They get the backstroke. They get it all. We're never going to assume that they're coming to us just primed and ready to go. So we break down every aspect of the stroke.
So then if we glean something from that, and my fundamental for swimming is remember to breathe above the water. I was never a competitive swimmer. I was a lifeguard. So breathing on top of the water was the important piece for me, for my education.
Yes.
But if we take what you just said, I think I heard, and correct me if this is wrong, I kind of heard three things that you said. The first is discipline in practice to where you're not just going out and doing whatever. The second thing is discipline out of practice to where what you do before you actually do the thing that you are supposed to do is, would you say it is as important or more important as what you do in practice, doing the job? Yeah. And then the third thing, which I'm going to take and probably maybe take it out of context, but you're preparing people for whether they stay or leave. Because you were talking about, you've got swimmers who are going on to other coaches, like national teams, international teams, and that. Mm-hmm. And if we take those three things and distill it down to our properties from a employee standpoint, we need them to do disciplined things at the property.
Yeah.
We need them to do disciplined things, and I think that's going to be the most challenging piece, is outside of work, so they're prepared for work. We need our technicians to have a full night's sleep so they can put 100% in the day of. And then the third thing is, how are we treating our employees while they're with us, and what do we do if or when they leave?
Yeah.
That was those were kind of the three things I heard fundamentally.
I think those could have been really taken any way. I think it's really cool how you took them that way, that you just said the three fundamentals and you relayed that and put that into multifamily perspective. I think that was really cool. There's I'm going to butcher this saying, and I cannot tell you who it was, but it's an old like Chinese proverb, or maybe even it's based on martial arts. So it could be karate, could be taekwondo, could be whatever. My apologies. But it was something about not fearing the master of many. So somebody who's mastered many or who's practiced many tasks one time, don't worry about that person. You know, fear the person who's practiced one thing 100 times.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So it's not that I'm practicing 100 things one time. It's that I'm practicing one thing 100 times.
I think Bruce Lee said something like that of fear the man who's practiced, fear the man. Maybe it was even Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid.
Could have
been. You know, don't worry.
Who was a maintenance man. Who was a maintenance man.
That's right.
Yes, he was. He was.
Yeah.
He needed some help on his swimming pool, but he was a maintenance man.
Yeah.
So Mark, those are some, great insights on the fundamentals and some of the things that I took away. I took away some of the things that Paul took away too, but for me, it was the repetition, that yes, you're in the pool all the time doing the breaststroke.
Yep.
But you haven't done it for me. You haven't done it on this team.
Right.
And I want to see how you do that. And, to go that, to move that over to our industry, to make that correlation, is that you may have turned 1,000 apartments at your previous companies, but you never turned one for me.
That's right.
I want to see how you do it. I want to provide you with coaching. I want to provide you with expectations. And I think that's one of the things that we miss. And I think that's one of the things that I want to go back to is when I do this refocusing on the basics, I'm actually leaning more towards, refocusing on the fundamentals, actually, as a title, a way to package this for my teams. And I think that we all need to be able to do that every now and then, is look at what we're doing and distill it down to either A, the fundamentals, or B, the areas that we identify that could use improvement. One or two areas. It's, as a leader, a lot of people say, oh, our numbers are bad. We need to get our numbers up. What numbers? Let's start there.
Which ones? What does?
Haven't we all been we've all been in a meeting where somebody's like, wow, our numbers are down. What numbers? Oh, our occupancy numbers, our revenue numbers, our renewal numbers. Okay, that's a lot of numbers.
That's right.
What is the thing that we could identify to get them up? And I think that goes back to the fundamentals. And I think, I listed off three things. What did I just list off? I listed occupancy numbers, renewal numbers, and what was the third?
Revenue,
right? And yeah, and those three things, and I've sat in those meetings even as a maintenance leader, and it's like, well, resident satisfaction is a common denominator with all three of those things. It doesn't have to be the common denominator, but it is. And I think that going back to the fundamentals is looking for a common denominator at your site, in your region, at your organization. Because that fundamental or that common denominator may be different everywhere. Paul, I got a pocket of guys who all know how to use multimeters. I'm not worried about them troubleshooting appliances.
Awesome.
Or HVAC units, right? But I have another pocket that don't even know. They think that when they plug it into the outlet, that's what's powering the multimeter. They don't know. I've literally had people not know that there was a battery inside the multimeter that actually powers it. They're like, well, we plug it in here and that charges it to, no. I've literally had somebody do that to me. So, but that's a fundamental that team or that person or that group needs to, work on.
Then are you looking in the process of making this up? Not only, it seems to me, are you needing to define which of the fundamentals you're going to focus on, but also define what, I don't know how to term the endpoint, normal is. What is success? What does a my latest acronym that I seem to look at everything through is snafu.
Oh yeah.
It may be screwed up, but hey, this is situation normal. So
Right.
if this is situation normal, all screwed up, then how can we get better at all screwed up? Whatever that is. And I recognize that's an extreme example. But at our communities, is that even defined in a way that our maintenance technicians or our maintenance leaders at each site, at each property can focus on? Does that definition exist? Because
so I think
then you're just going to be chasing fundamentals the whole time, right?
Yeah, and I think those are two important things. I think anything you do, you need to define the problem and you have to define what a solution looks like before you even start, right? When something isn't working, you know what it was like when it was working. You know what it should look like when it's working again, right? If you have an appliance, let's go with the appliance example. When the appliance is working, you know what it looks like. It breaks. You have to fix it. You know what it looks like when it's working. So you have to get it back to working. And I think that's one of the things that we always often forget is that we just want it to work. Why did it break? Identify why it broke, right? And try not to repeat that again. So I want to move on and talk about some other stuff. So let's just wrap this up because I think that, this was a really good, solid conversation that, about fundamentals. Love it. Revisiting, especially as you start into the new year, we have new budgets. Yes, there are some light switch things that do flip.
Right.
With the new year, right? We all talk about resolutions and all that, but we have new budgets. We have, new leases, just like we have every day, every week, every month, depending on your cycle. You have new leases that start. You have new opportunities. You have new catalogs that come out from suppliers, right? There's always new technology.
We don't do catalogs anymore. Paper is old school.
Oh my God, did I just date myself? But I think that to wrap up this talk that we're having is look at what the fundamentals are and figure out the repetition that needs to happen to be proficient at that fundamental. Because once you've mastered, and I don't like the word mastered either, but once you've mastered a fundamental, then everything else kind of is built on that. Going back to your multimeter example, Paul, and it is very basic. Once you've mastered a multimeter, right? In mastering the multimeter, you actually know Ohm's law now because you've learned, you understand the types of voltage you should be getting out of certain circuits. You've learned how to read a diagram because you have to use the multimeter to look at an electrical diagram to make sure that you're getting the proper resistance, right? So once you've mastered that, you're actually mastering a whole bunch of other things at the same time. And then you can build on your HVAC repair skills, your appliance repair skills, your electrical troubleshooting, all from mastering that one very basic fundamental. And I think that's where we're going to leave this conversation today is find the fundamental or the basic, whether it's with yourself, with your team, with your organization that you can in turn build on and be successful or continue to be successful and teach others that at the same time. So I think we're going to wrap there on this segment. You guys okay with that? Any closing thoughts?
Awesome.
I will say, and this does fit in kind of perfectly, and this is a quote that I will not butcher, but Rick Pitino, ex coach for University of Kentucky basketball, like one of his favorite sayings is practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So going back to those fundamentals and really understanding the small nuances, the perfection of each little thing, perfect practice makes perfect.
Well, it's too bad this isn't going to be an episode on my show, because that would have been the BTW and the title of this episode. So I think that's fantastic, Mark, and I absolutely agree with that. That perfect practice is really what you need to... I love that.
Now it's your opportunity to respond and let us know what we missed. If there's any topics of conversation you'd like us to turn over, head over to multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave us a message.